What's going on, man?
Hey, hello to Jamaica and the rest of the world from Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Let's go. Exactly. From Chiang Mai, Thailand, a beautiful place in the world. What's your name, brother?
I'm Sifu Dave.
Sifu Dave.
Some people say Saifu.
All right.
Good to meet you.
Where are you from?
I'm last of Kitchener, Canada, south of Toronto, and grew up around the Niagara Falls area for a while. But yeah, I got a place there, and here in Thailand, and one in the South Florida states, and sometimes through Europe with my work. Yeah.
All right. So you sound like a very successful man.
Well, it's a struggle, doing what I do for a living. It's not as romantic as you think.
Yeah, it comes with its battles, huh?
It does. Living off the kindness of lonely women, basically.
Are you a gigolo?
No, that's not what I said at all. That's not what I said at all. I could be a psychologist. I mean, after what I just said. I mean, why would you?
You could be a psychologist. You could be a gigolo.
That could be the same thing.
You could be a psychologist who's a gigolo.
One could be successful, and the other one could just be stringing you along for more money. You know what? A psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor, therapist, they don't make money unless you got a problem. They don't make money. Lawyer?
That's a fact.
A lawyer like me doesn't make money unless I can make a problem for you. So stay away from all that.
So your job does come with a lot of stress. What would you say is the hardest thing with being a lawyer then?
Well, I worked in the law for many years, and I still do. International human rights law for the refugees of the Myanmar war and the indigent tribes people who are in northern Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, of course. And I've adopted 3 babies formally so far. I take care of another 6 others, so 9 kids under my protection and teaching them and raising them, and 100 to 200 other tribes people and war refugees and elderly, and all living up in the border area of the Golden Triangle, which is a beautiful place to visit. But Myanmar suffers from the big civil war. We talk about the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel. Nothing like Myanmar. 300,000 people dead a few miles north of us on the border. 300,000, not 15 or 50 or all these hyped up numbers, but serious stuff nearby.
So yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't know about this war. Let's educate them for a little bit. Give us the basis of what this war is about and what's going on in Myanmar.
Well, one of the real travesties is this is one of the longest wars in human history, lasting 75 years since Myanmar gained its independence and became a democracy. But there are different groups and factions within Myanmar who have their own agendas and their own conflicts and their own fears, and ignorance is a lot of it too. We live in a modern, complex, global world, and we all have to find a place and find a purpose and find some way of being a component in the whole system. And it's difficult for a lot of these people who live like they lived 10,000 years ago. They live in thatch huts made of bamboo and, grass roofs, and they cook with fire and no plumbing, sometimes marginal electricity. But yeah, it's, a lot of people don't realize there are people who live very simply, in a very different way than what we're used to in the Western first world.
Would you say that when they are then introduced to the Western world, are they handicapped because they don't have familiarity with this tech that we have, or like stocks? They don't know. I'm pretty sure they don't know about the stock market.
True.
Right,
Well, it is interesting how remote they are from our first world, our educational system in the Western Hemisphere and in Europe. But it allows us to reflect on our own isolation and ignorance too. I mean, someone told me I needed a new cell phone. I said, look, I can't do 5% of what this cell phone can do. When I get to 10%, I'll think about a new cell phone because, we experience a facet of the universe. Like Tim Robbins talked about, we look at the world through a cardboard tube. And we think we've got the whole picture, but our cardboard tube is not the whole picture. It's kind of our modern comparison to Socrates' Shadows on a Cave. We don't. We just have a minuscule concept of the totality of everything. Whether you're a tribes person, whether you are interviewers, news bloggers like yourselves, whether you're a volunteer human rights advocate like me, we just see a little sliver.
Okay. Now, have you heard about the indigenous peoples of Thailand, known as the Manik people? They're indigenous black people. Have you heard about them?
Now, wait a minute. Manik people. I know a great deal about indigenous groups. Now, are they very dark-skinned people?
Very dark.
You're saying?
Yeah, just like me.
Wow. Now, I actually, in grad school, I studied in the Philippines, and I lived among the Ifugao tribes people, who are very dark-skinned. Not. I guess we can all say, as far as we know, all humans are of African descent. All humans, we came out of Africa. There's some modern theories about some European evolution, and once upon a time, when I was a boy in school, there were some anthropologists who theorized about simultaneous genesis, that some anthropologists thought native Australians evolved there separately, but we now know that that's not accurate. 50,000 years ago, they were able to cross islands. So yeah, I haven't heard about this group, but that's interesting to me.
Okay, yes. They're here in Thailand, but they're in small numbers. And they're going through their battle as well, just like the people in Myanmar is going through a whole war, but they're also going through their battles here. Just it's stealth. It's not really spoken about. It's stealth.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What's an interesting thing, I'm a more mature guy now. I've been around the world many times, lived in 14 countries, and 5 generations anywhere, 5 generations anywhere in the world, and you're a different people, you're a different culture, you're a different physically we change. So, when I was a boy, I thought I could only see the differences. And now I can't see any differences,
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about the war that's going on right now? What do you think about?
So many wars now. We've got the Israeli conflict, which is partially internal and partially external, greatly external. The Ukraine war that's been going on for more than 2 years now. But there's so many wars going on the planet now. There are the wars in Africa, and the war in Myanmar. So now the recent conflict, or they don't want to call it a war, the military action against, I don't want to say against Iran, because I have Iranian friends. I have, so many friends who are Iranian, and, this military action is not against Iran, fortunately, not against 93 million people, but against a small handful of fanatics who have taken control of the country from the people. So I think we have to respect that. And I have friends who are, Muslim, Zoroastrian, Buddhists, like me. And it's interesting that some people see that this is a liberating, if heavy-handed, it's a liberating effort, potentially, but also controversial, very controversial. You know, many people saying it's an arrogation of power, certainly an abrogation of power, possibly. So, you know, let's hope for the best for 93 million people living in Iran. And, you know, condolences to the upwards of 90,000 people who've been massacred by a few members of the government. I mean, when the day comes when we are citizens of a country and some government officials massacre 90,000 of it, I hope somebody does something. You know, I mean, I mean, whatever we can do to make those people who just murdered us not be there would just be a godsend.
Now, what do you predict, based off your intuition and your foresight, do you predict things getting better or worse? Will China and Russia get involved?
Let me tell you, I have a lot of respect for China and what they've done. I have associates in China. I've done some business with China. I have Russian friends. And, you know, I feel, you know, the Russian-Ukraine conflict is an interesting one because they were both part of the Soviet Union at one time. So this is really like Texas and Oklahoma having a scrimmage because they were one country. All right, they were one country once. And I think there are certain political factions that recognize it would generally be considered a better situation to be a bigger, more prominent country than two factious fractioned companies, okay? And, you know, being a Canadian, I can more objectively assert that we understand that America, you know, was involved in destabilizing the Soviet Union and fragmenting the Soviet Union and possibly causing a host of problems that didn't exist before. You know, so, you know, I myself remember a day in my early childhood when I was younger that there was a Soviet Union, there was another superpower, and there was something wholesome and balanced about that. It's like when you're in high school and you have your football team, okay, and you're a good team. Maybe you're the best team. There's another team out there that's a good team and possibly the best team, and that's your rival. I mean, what's the noble and proper thing to do? You train hard, you put your skill and heart against theirs, and what you don't do is damage the team, fracture the team, poison their drinking water, you know, bomb their school, set off the fire alarm, do everything dirty and unseemly you can to be better without being better. You know, in an ideal world, the Soviet Union still exists, and we have someone to reflect on, someone to discuss things with, someone to prevent arrogations of power. You know, I mean, I would feel more comfortable, even as a North American myself, you know, having a Soviet Union that was healthy and strong and viable just seems like it would have been a better thing for the world. So
is China the Soviet Union of today?
Wow. Well, we know that North Korea sent troops to fight in Ukraine for the Russians, okay, which is quite interesting. We know that, you know, China is allied with Russia in many ways. They give aid, they sell resources, so I don't know. Should, you know, I've often thought too, I thought, wait a minute, okay, so if Russia wins the war, they get Ukraine. All right, what if Ukraine wins, do they take Russia? I mean, either way, wow, that would, maybe Ukraine should win and it will be one big Ukraine. The Russian people would probably be very happy with that.
All right, I want to ask you, it's going to be an interesting question. Do you think that Revelation's prophecy is taking place right now?
Sure. You know, I was a biblical scholar as a youth, and I studied theology in college, and Yeah, when I was a teenager, I was a little fanatical about biblical revelations and prophecies, and you know, I think as a Buddhist now, I see that the Buddhists believe that everything repeats itself, like quantum physicists who believe that, you know, the Big Bang. Why did the Big Bang happen? Well, it's happened many, many, many times. This is just an inhale and an exhale, an inhale and an exhale. And the universe didn't come from nothing. It came from a point of condensed everything and then expanded and contracted, expanded. So, yeah, I think Revelations applies to World War II. I think it applies to, you know, the opium wars. Those axioms, those archetypes can apply to various countries, various players in virtually any conflict. I mean, we could apply Revelations to corporate wars, financial stock market wars, and say, well, this is the horned beast with 10 crowns with 7 diadems, and this is obviously because there's 7 and there's 10, and you're gonna find 7, you're gonna find 10, of something, So who's the beast of the land, and who's the beast of? Okay, well, are we talking about like Taoist elements? And yeah, well, that would who would be the sea power? That would be England, at the. In post-Renaissance, and who would be the land? Well, that would be Russia, and it all works. And maybe those prophets who came up with these visions and these insights gave us these useful tools, these little paradigms to try to fit things into, to try to make sense of it all.
Right. Right. Okay. Check this out. Based off of your perspective of the world and your understanding of the world, do you think we're free? Do you think human beings are free, or are we being manipulated and controlled? Do we think we're free? Do we actually have freedom, or do we only think we have freedom?
That's a great question, and I think we have to look at every situation and say, yeah, well, when we were cavemen on the savannah, hunting for scraps and eating, animal carcasses that some saber-toothed tiger killed. We were free. Until the tiger got us, and we were not free at all. We can't leave the tree 23 hours a day. We're free. We don't have any cable bills. We don't have any, I don't have to get my car fixed. I don't have to renew my registration. I'm up in this tree. Do you see the saber-toothed tiger? Because I'm getting hungry. Like, I remember the last time Nanook climbed down and we thought boom! So how free are we ever? And maybe the real perspective is it's always the same. Whatever you think. The Buddhists say that life is 50% pleasure and 50% pain. And whoever you are, wherever you are, you can't get out of that balance. You think you can, but you can. Trump in the White House with he's got 50% headaches, all right, and he's got 50% joy, and us here, and it's always going to be the same. It's always going to be the same. That balance, that that harmony.
Yeah. Okay. What would you like to say to the world right now? What's your message to the world?
First of all, the most important thing is that love is not a crime, okay? Human sexuality is not a perversion. And what I'm seeing as a semi-retired attorney is there are all these big cases criminalizing human intimacy and brainwashing people into thinking it's a crime. And we're seeing this with, it's like I'm seeing young people who actually believe that non-heterosexual relationships, man with a man, a woman with a woman, is actually more socially acceptable than a heterosexual relationship. There are less social constraints, less social limitations. It's more socially acceptable. And when you think about it, there's less pressure, less stress. It's almost incentivized. And you know, I'm reading that in some American high schools, as many as 24% of young people say that they are not heterosexual. And I have educators who say, well, that's okay. They're a lot. I said, I have a friend, Michael, he's a biologist, master's degree teacher. I said, Michael, if 24% of all animal species on Earth started copulating with members of the same gender, it would be a global meltdown of the scientific community trying to figure out how this insane virus or alien influence has destroyed the ecosystem and animals aren't reproducing anymore, and you know, the bee population is going to plummet. Plants are not reproducing sexually anymore. That, like, the grain is not, food shortages are going to be critical levels in 4 years. And 24% of people are not heterosexual anymore in some high schools. Michael, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a brainwashing Tourette's syndrome. It's a fraud, and it's destroying people's lives. Okay, it's okay to be who you are, you know. And I think the liberating thing is, you know, as a lesbian born in a man's body, I was, you know, I was marginalized decades before it became popular. But the bottom line is, if you are something in something else, the physiology you have then is just fine. I mean, it's just great. It's like, well, I have this, and I have this, and I go with it. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's fine. Remember that? So we should be empowering and not deprecating and denigrating people and telling them that they need, you know, a sex change operation or something more complicated.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. I wanted to end it there, but I actually have one more question.
Go ahead.
I hope it doesn't trigger you. Okay. But in Jamaica, you know, Jamaica is notoriously known for being extremely homophobic. And in Jamaica, the reasoning behind the homophobia is that they're saying it's protecting the minds of their children.
Right.
And it's protecting the black culture. Right? In Jamaica, they actually call it white man disease. Is what they call it. So
technology, capitalism, the dog eat dog nature of the world. Maybe people are, you know, I mean, when we think about Milgram's experiments and the 25th level and the mouse utopia, when they set up a perfect society of mice, they stopped having sex, they stopped reproducing, they stopped eating because they had everything they needed. So maybe we're just poisoning society, white man utopia, capitalist overload, people just deciding I can't be in a relationship, I can't be a part of this, I can't reproduce. Maybe it's a way of society correcting itself. And what we're seeing in modern countries like Japan and even in America, population and culture is not being maintained because, you know, middle-class Americans of European descent are not reproducing to levels to replace themselves. It's said that only the Latin population is saving America from a population meltdown like Japan is experiencing. Even China has relaxed its one-child rule and said we have to let people reproduce. So I respect the natural wisdom and wholesome intellect of the island culture and the fact that these people living in a more natural world with the elements, not so overrun by capitalism and greed and exploitation of anything and everything, can see this objectively. And phobia, you know, this new thing about phobia, you know, being afraid of something, especially being afraid of something dangerous, is not a malignancy. It's a healthy, normal human survival essential. So if you are afraid of terrorists killing your children or your children growing up being dysfunctional, I think you're right. I think we have to identify things objectively. And the important thing is, as people of reason, we're allowed to discuss things. George Orwell in 1984, his groundbreaking novel, said, people will be prevented from using words to prevent them from actually thinking clearly about things, saying that, but you can't use the word phobia. You can't use the word non-heterosexual. You can't. Yes, we can. Well, I don't have an opinion about it yet. I'm trying to figure out. You can't figure out what's best and what's real. We want to manipulate you into what we want you to think is best and real. So that's wholesome wisdom from the people of Jamaica.
And that was a lot of wholesome wisdom from you, my friend. Thank you so much for the interview and sharing your mind.
Good to meet you. Stay well in Thailand.